Every parent knows that terrifying moment when a child's laughter suddenly stops. For Michael Sullivan, that moment came on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon while watching his neighbor's 6-year-old daughter, Emma. One second she was coloring at his kitchen table, the next she was clutching her chest, her face turning grey as she collapsed to the floor. Michael had lost his wife to cancer, raised his teenage daughter alone while working 2 jobs, but nothing prepared him for this. As he pumped Emma's tiny chest, counting compressions the way the Red Cross taught him years ago, he prayed like he'd never prayed before. What would you do if a child's life depended on you? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning had started like every other Tuesday in Michael Sullivan's life, with the harsh buzz of his alarm at 4:30 a.m. His hand fumbled across the nightstand, finding the worn leather band that held his wedding ring. 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days since Sarah had passed, and he still couldn't bring himself to wear it on his finger. The weight of it against his chest as he pulled the chain over his head was both comfort and reminder. Down the narrow hallway of their 2-bedroom apartment, he could hear Lily stirring. At 16, she had her mother's grace and her father's stubborn determination. Michael padded to the kitchen, started the coffee maker, a luxury he allowed himself only because he'd found it at Goodwill, and began assembling Lily's lunch. 2 sandwiches today because she had volleyball practice after school. No money for the team dinner afterward, but she never complained. "Morning, Dad?" Lily appeared in the doorway, already dressed in jeans and a sweater that was starting to show wear at the elbows. Her backpack, held together with duct tape where the zipper had split, hung from one shoulder. "Morning, sweetheart. Coffee's almost." "Ready?" She shook her head. "I'm good with juice." They both knew she was leaving the coffee for him. One less cup to buy this week. Michael watched her pour the orange juice, the cheap kind, more sugar water than fruit, and felt the familiar twist in his gut. Sarah would have hated seeing Lily go without, but Sarah had also made him promise to keep going, to raise their daughter right no matter what. "I've got a double shift at the warehouse today," he said, spreading peanut butter on whole wheat bread. "Then 4 hours at the gas station tonight. Mrs. Chen asked if I could watch Emma for a few hours this afternoon between shifts. $50. Lily's eyes brightened. "That's great, Dad. Emma's sweet. You'll be okay getting home. I should be back by 11. I've got practice until 5, then homework at Jennifer's house. We're studying for the chemistry test." Michael knew she chose Jennifer's house because Jennifer's mom always insisted on feeding her dinner. Pride warred with gratitude, and gratitude won. It always did these days. The morning routine continued with practiced efficiency. Lily gathered her homework, some printed on the back of reused paper, while Michael packed his own meager lunch. 2 apples, a can of soup he'd heat in the warehouse breakroom microwave, crackers from the bulk bin at the discount store. "Dad," Lily paused at the door, "my chemistry teacher says if I keep my grades up, I could qualify for the state science scholarship. It would cover most of college." Michael's throat tightened. "That's wonderful, baby. You just focus on those grades. We'll figure out the rest." She nodded, understanding all the things he couldn't say. How he'd been saving $20 a month for her college fund, how it would take a miracle to get her through school, how he'd work himself into the ground before he'd let her dreams die. After Lily left, Michael stood in the empty apartment, finishing his coffee in the silence. The walls were bare except for 3 photos: their wedding picture, Lily's school portrait from last year, and the last photo of the 3 of them together, taken 2 weeks before Sarah's diagnosis. He dressed in his warehouse uniform, checking his phone for the time. Mrs. Chen would drop Emma off at 2 p.m., giving him just enough time to get home between jobs. The $50 would cover Lily's volleyball uniform payment, 2 weeks overdue, though the coach hadn't said anything yet. The drive to the warehouse took him through neighborhoods that grew progressively more industrial, past the community center where he'd learned CPR during a free weekend class Sarah had insisted on. "You never know when you might need it," she'd said. He'd thought she was being overcautious, the way she'd been about life insurance and writing wills when they were barely 30. The warehouse loomed ahead, a massive grey building where he spent 8 hours moving boxes, loading trucks, trying not to think about the engineering degree gathering dust in a drawer at home. The degree that had become worthless when Sarah got sick, when someone needed to be home, when medical bills consumed their savings, and his career became a casualty of love and duty. But today felt different somehow. Maybe it was Lily's mention of the scholarship, or the way the morning sun caught on his wedding ring as he parked. Or maybe it was just that Tuesday feeling when the week stretched ahead full of identical days, each one a small victory in keeping their little family afloat. Michael clocked in, nodded to the familiar faces of the morning shift, and began another day of lifting, carrying, surviving. In 6 hours, he'd go home to watch a little girl named Emma earn $50 and inch one day closer to keeping his promise to Sarah. He had no idea that in just a few hours, everything would change. Michael's apartment felt different with a child in it again. Emma sat at the kitchen table, her small fingers wrapped around a purple crayon, tongue poking out in concentration as she worked on her coloring book. She'd arrived with a backpack, nearly as big as she was, stuffed with activities and snacks, though she'd gravitated immediately to the coloring. "That's a beautiful butterfly," Michael said, setting a glass of apple juice beside her. He'd watered it down to make the bottle last longer, but Emma didn't seem to notice. "It's for my mommy," Emma said without looking up. "She likes purple. She's in—" She paused, forehead scrunching. "Singapore? That's really far away." "It is far away. I bet she misses you." Emma nodded solemnly. "She calls every night. But it's morning there when it's nighttime here. That's silly, right?" Michael smiled, settling into the chair across from her. The kitchen timer on the counter showed 45 minutes until the cookies would be done, a box mix he'd been saving for Lily's birthday, but decided to make for Emma. Something about her reminded him of Lily at that age. The same earnest concentration, the same way of stating observations about the world, as if they were profound discoveries. "Do you see your mommy a lot?" he asked gently. Emma shrugged, switching to a green crayon. "Sometimes. She has important work. Mrs. Chen watches me, but she had to go to the dentist today. She said you're very nice and have a daughter." "I do, Lily. She's 16. That's old." Emma giggled, then returned to her coloring. "I'm 6. I had a birthday last month, but Mommy was in London. We had a party on the computer." Michael felt a pang of sympathy. Different circumstances, but he knew what it was like for a child to miss a parent. "Well, when those cookies are done, we can have a little celebration here. How's that sound?" Emma's face lit up. "Really? I love cookies." She set down her crayon and looked at him with those serious grey eyes. "Mr. Michael, do you think butterflies—" "No, they used to be caterpillars." Before he could answer, Emma's expression changed. The joy vanished, replaced by confusion, then fear. Her small hand moved to her chest, pressing against her pink t-shirt with the glittery unicorn. "Mr. Michael?" Her voice came out thin, scared. "My chest feels funny." Michael was already moving, some instinct firing before his conscious mind caught up. "Funny how, sweetheart? It's—" Emma's face had gone pale, a greyish tinge creeping across her cheeks. "It's squeezing. I can't—" She swayed in her chair. Michael lunged forward, catching her as she toppled sideways. Her eyes rolled back, showing white, and her small body went limp in his arms. Emma, honey, can you hear me?" Nothing. Her lips were turning blue. Michael lowered her to the kitchen floor, his hands moving with a precision that surprised him. "Check for breathing." Nothing. "Check for pulse." Faint, irregular. His phone was on the counter. He grabbed it, dialing 911 with one hand, while positioning Emma flat on her back with the other. 911, what's your emergency?" 6-year-old girl, unconscious, not breathing properly, lips turning blue. I'm starting CPR. He rattled off his address, put the phone on speaker and set it beside them. Sir, help is on the way. Do you know CPR? Yes. His hands were already positioned on Emma's chest, one on top of the other, finding the spot just below the center of her ribcage. The training came back like muscle memory, 30 compressions, steady rhythm, not too deep for a child. 1, 2, 3. He counted aloud, aware of the operator's voice but focused entirely on the small form beneath his hands. Emma's chest compressed and released, compressed and released. Such a tiny chest, so fragile. At 30, he tilted her head back, pinched her nose, and gave 2 rescue breaths. Her chest rose and fell, but nothing else changed. Back to compressions. Come on, Emma. Come on, sweetheart. The kitchen timer cheerfully dinged in the background. The cookies were ready. The normalcy of it felt obscene against the desperate rhythm of his hands pumping life into this child. How long has she been unconscious, sir? Maybe 2 minutes. Was that all? It felt like hours. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he continued compressions. Emma's coloring book lay open on the table, the purple butterfly half finished, green crayon rolling toward the edge. Paramedics are 3 minutes out. Keep going, you're doing great. Another round of 30 compressions, 2 more breaths. Michael's arms burned, but he didn't slow. He thought of Sarah in those final days, how helpless he'd felt watching her. Fade. Not again. Not this child. Emma, you stay with me. Your mommy needs you to stay with me. The apartment door burst open. Dad? I forgot my... Oh my God! Lily stood frozen in the doorway, taking in the scene, her father on his knees, performing CPR on the little girl who should have been coloring at their table. Lily, let the paramedics in when they get here. Go wait by the entrance. His daughter snapped into action, disappearing without another word. Good girl, just like her mother, calm in crisis, more compressions, more breaths. Emma's face was so still, like a broken doll. The purple crayon had rolled under the refrigerator, somewhere. In the distance, sirens wailed. Please, Michael whispered between compressions. Please. The timer kept beeping. The cookies were burning now, acrid smoke starting to wisp from the oven. But Michael's hands never stopped their rhythm, pushing life into Emma's still form, counting out hope in steady compressions while her unfinished butterfly waited on the table above. The ambulance doors slammed shut with Michael inside, leaving Lily standing on the sidewalk. The paramedics worked with swift efficiency, one adjusting the tiny oxygen mask over Emma's face, while the other prepared an IV line. Michael pressed himself against the wall, trying to stay out of their way while refusing to leave. Sir, are you family? The younger paramedic glanced up from Emma's still form. No, I was babysitting, but I'm not leaving her. The older paramedic, a woman with graying hair pulled back in a severe bun, nodded. You did good back there. Textbook CPR. You might have saved her life. Might have. The words hung in the air as the ambulance wove through traffic, sirens screaming. Michael watched the heart monitor, trying to understand the erratic green lines. Emma looked impossibly small on the gurney, dwarfed by equipment and wires. Any medical history we should know about? The woman paramedic adjusted something on one of the machines. I don't know. She's my neighbor's granddaughter. Mrs. Chen just asked me to watch her for a few hours. Emma said her mother travels for work. She's in Singapore. We'll need to contact her. I don't have the number. Mrs. Chen might... Michael pulled out his phone, realizing he didn't even have Mrs. Chen's number. She'd always just knocked on his door when she needed him. The hospital materialized around them in a blur of white walls and antiseptic smell. Emma disappeared through double doors marked "Authorized Personnel Only," leaving Michael standing in the sudden quiet of the waiting room. His shirt was soaked with sweat, his arms aching from the CPR. He found a plastic chair and sank into it, only then noticing the blood on his hands, Emma's, from where the IV had been inserted. The sight of it made everything real in a way that felt like a punch to the gut. His phone buzzed. Lily, Dad, I grabbed your wallet and I'm on my way. Which hospital? Always thinking ahead, just like her mother. Michael gave her the information, then called his supervisor at the warehouse. Family emergency. Yes, he understood about the attendance policy. He'd be there tomorrow if he could. The gas station was next. His manager there was less understanding. Michael, this is the third time this month. It's not my family. I was watching a little girl and his voice cracked. She stopped breathing. Silence on the other end. Then a sigh. Just call me when you know something, okay? Time moved strangely in hospitals. Minutes felt like hours, but somehow an hour passed in what seemed like seconds. Lily arrived with his wallet and a jacket, settling beside him without words. She'd brought his reading glasses too, though there was nothing to read except pamphlets about heart disease and grief counseling. How is she? Lily asked quietly. I don't know. They won't tell me anything because I'm not family. You saved her life, Dad. Maybe. I hope so. He thought about Emma's question about butterflies, her half-finished coloring. Such a normal afternoon until it wasn't. A doctor emerged. From the double doors, young, tired-looking, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Are you the one who performed CPR on Emma? Michael stood so quickly his vision swam. Yes. Is she? She's alive. Stable for now. You absolutely saved her life. Another few minutes and he shook his head. We've run some tests. Emma has a congenital heart defect, something that's probably been there since birth but stayed hidden until now. She needs surgery. Surgery? Lily gripped Michael's hand. It's serious but fixable. The concerning part is we can't reach her mother, and the emergency contact in her file is a law firm that's closed for the evening. Do you have any way to contact her family? Michael felt helpless. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, was watching her. She might know. But I don't have her number. Emma said her mother was in Singapore on business. The doctor nodded, making notes on his tablet. We'll keep trying. In the meantime, Emma's asking for you. She's frightened and sedated, but she keeps saying, Mr. Michael, over and over. Would you be willing to sit with her until we can reach her mother? Of course. The doctor led him through the maze of corridors to the pediatric ICU. Emma lay in a bed that seemed enormous around her tiny frame. Machines beeped and hummed, tubes and wires creating a web around her. But her eyes were open, finding his immediately. Mr. Michael? Her voice was barely a whisper around the oxygen tubes. I'm here, sweetheart. He took the chair beside her. Bed, carefully taking her small hand in his. You're going to be okay. Did I miss the cookies? Despite everything, he smiled. They burned a little, but we'll make new ones when you're better. Promise, promise. Her eyes fluttered closed, but her hand tightened on his. Michael settled back in the chair, prepared for a long night. Through the window, he could see Lily in the hallway, talking on her phone, probably calling school, making arrangements, handling things the way she'd learned to do too young. A nurse appeared with paperwork. Sir, I know you're not family, but since you're the only one here, could you fill out what you know? Michael took the forms, writing Emma's name, age 6, Mrs. Chen as guardian. So little he knew about this child whose life had literally been in his hands. The spaces for medical history remained blank, mysterious as the mother who was somewhere on the other side of the world, unaware that her daughter's heart had stopped in a stranger's kitchen. He kept hold of Emma's hand as he wrote, her hospital, bracelet catching the fluorescent light. Such a small wrist, such a big fight ahead. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the hospital walls orange and pink. Somewhere in Singapore, Emma's mother was probably starting her day, checking emails over coffee, planning meetings. She had no idea how her world was about to change. Michael squeezed Emma's hand gently and continued his vigil, watching each breath, each heartbeat on the monitor, each small sign that the butterfly was still fighting to emerge. Night settled over the hospital like a heavy blanket. Michael had lost track of time, his world reduced to the steady beep of Emma's heart monitor and the soft whoosh of the ventilator. His back ached from the uncomfortable chair, but he didn't move. Every time he shifted, Emma's hand would tighten on his, even in sleep. Lily appeared in the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee from the hospital cafeteria. "Thought you could use this," she whispered, handing him the paper cup. "It's terrible, but it's caffeinated." "Thanks, sweetheart. You should go home, get some rest. I'm not leaving you here alone." She settled into the chair on the other side of Emma's bed, pulling out her chemistry textbook. "Besides, someone needs to make sure you eat something." She produced a sandwich from her backpack, peanut butter and jelly, made with the last of their bread. Michael's throat tightened. His 16-year-old daughter, taking care of him the way her mother would have. "Any word on her mom?" Lily asked, keeping her voice low. "Nothing. The nurses have been calling the law firm's emergency number every hour. They just get an answering service that takes messages." Michael rubbed his eyes, frustration building. What kind of mother leaves a 6-year-old with no way to reach her in an emergency? "Dad." Lily's gentle rebuke reminded him that Emma could hear them, even sedated. "Maybe there's a reason." A nurse entered to check Emma's vitals, the third. On this shift, word had spread about the man who'd saved the little girl's life and refused to leave her side. They'd stopped asking if he was family. "Poor little thing," the nurse murmured, adjusting Emma's IV. "Dr. Morrison says she'll need surgery within 48 hours. We really need parental consent." "What happens if you can't reach her mother?" Michael asked. "Child services would have to get involved. Emergency custody orders, medical guardians." She shook her head. "It gets complicated. Better if we can find Mom." After the nurse left, Michael stood to stretch his legs, walking to the window. The city sparkled below, thousands of lives continuing unaware of the drama in this small room. Somewhere out there, Mrs. Chen was probably frantic. He should find a way to contact her, let her know Emma was alive. "Dad?" Lily had moved to Emma's chart, reading with the scholarly intensity she applied to everything. "This says her last name is Chen, too. Maybe Mrs. Chen is actually her grandmother." Michael considered this. Emma had called her Mrs. Chen, not Grandma, but children had different names for grandparents. It would explain why the elderly woman watched Emma so often. His phone buzzed, the gas station. He let it go to voicemail. Tomorrow's problems could wait until tomorrow. "Mr. Michael." Emma's voice was barely audible. He was beside her instantly. "I'm here, honey. How are you feeling?" "Tired." "Where's my mommy?" "We're trying to call her. She'll be here as soon as she can." Emma's eyes, grey like storm clouds, studied his face. "She's very busy. She helps sick people. She's a doctor." "No." Emma frowned, trying to find the words. "She gives money to help sick people all over the world. That's why she travels. A philanthropist." That explained the law firm as Emergency Contact, probably her foundation's legal team. But it still didn't explain why a woman who helped sick people worldwide couldn't be reached when her own daughter was ill. "What's your mommy's name, Emma?" "Victoria Chen." Emma's eyes fluttered. "Victoria Elizabeth Chen. She's very important." Michael pulled out his phone, typing the name into a search engine. The results loaded slowly on the hospital's weak Wi-Fi. Then his breath caught. Victoria Chen, founder and CEO of the Chen Foundation for Global Health, Forbes 40 under 40. Estimated net worth, $2.3 billion. The photos showed a striking woman with Emma's grey eyes and delicate features, always photographed at galas, medical centers, refugee camps. "Dad?" Lily had been reading over his shoulder. "She's... wow, billionaire." The word felt surreal. This little girl coloring butterflies at his kitchen table was the daughter of one of the world's youngest billionaires. And she'd nearly died, on his kitchen floor, while her mother was halfway around the world. He scrolled through article after article. Victoria Chen, orphaned at 12 when her parents died in a car accident. Built her first company at 22, sold it for hundreds of millions. Dedicated her fortune to global health initiatives after Michael's heart clenched, after her husband died of a congenital heart defect 4 years ago. "Lily, look at this." He showed her an article about Victoria's husband. Same condition as Emma's, undiagnosed until it was too late. That's why she travels so much, Lily said softly. She's running from the pain, wise beyond her years. His daughter. Michael looked back at Emma, sleeping fitfully despite the sedation. Did Victoria know her daughter had inherited the same condition that killed her father? Or had she been too busy saving the world to notice? His phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Sullivan? This is Patterson Legal. We received an urgent message about Emma Chen. We're trying to reach Ms. Chen now. She's in Singapore for the Global Health Summit. Can you tell us Emma's condition? Michael explained quickly, professionally, watching Emma's face as he described her heart defect. The lawyer's sharp intake of breath told him they understood the significance. We'll get her on the next flight out. It's a 20-hour journey, even on her private jet. Would you be willing to stay with Emma until she arrives? I'm not leaving her. Thank you. Ms. Chen will want to thank you personally. You saved her daughter's life. After the call ended, Michael sat back down, taking Emma's hand again. Her hospital bracelet had twisted, and he gently straightened it. Such a small thing to hold so many secrets. A billionaire's daughter, a heart. Condition hidden like a time bomb, a mother racing across the world. The cookies are probably still on the counter, Emma mumbled, half asleep. Don't worry about the cookies, sweetheart. We'll make new ones. With chocolate chips? All the chocolate chips you want. She smiled slightly, drifting back to sleep. Michael caught Lily wiping her eyes, pretending to be absorbed in her chemistry textbook. 20 hours. He'd stay 20 hours, 20 days, whatever it took. Because that's what you did when a child needed you. Whether they were rich or poor, whether their mother was a billionaire or a barista, none of that mattered when a little heart was fighting to keep beating. He pulled the unsigned thank you card from his jacket pocket. He'd grabbed it from the gift shop earlier, thinking he should thank the nurses. Now he turned it over in his hands, wondering what you could possibly write to a mother whose child you'd found dying on your kitchen floor. How did you explain those moments of terror? The weight of her small chest under your hands, the desperate prayer that she'd take just one more breath? You didn't. You just stayed. You held her hand and promised chocolate chip cookies and waited for a mother to cross the world, hoping she'd make it in time. The next morning arrived with a flurry of activity. Dr. Morrison, the cardiac surgeon, stood at the foot of Emma's bed with a team of residents, explaining the procedure with the kind of calm precision that came from years of practice. Michael tried to follow along, but the medical terms blurred together: ventricular septal defect, pulmonary stenosis, surgical repair. The good news, Dr. Morrison said, his pen pointing to the images on his tablet, is that this is repairable. The concerning news is that we need to do it soon. Her heart is working too hard to compensate. Another event like yesterday could be fatal. But her mother, Michael began, won't be here for at least another 15 hours. Emma can't wait that long. The doctor's expression was sympathetic but firm. We need consent to operate. A woman in a suit entered the room. Hospital administration. Mr. Sullivan, we have an unusual situation. Ms. Chen's lawyers have sent power of attorney documents, but they're complex international documents that our legal team is still reviewing. However, they've also sent a recorded video message from Ms. Chen, authorizing you specifically to make medical decisions for Emma until she arrives. Michael felt the room spin slightly. Me? But I'm not. I barely know them. You saved her life. According to her lawyers, Ms. Chen trusts you completely. The administrator handed him a tablet. Would you like to see the message? On the screen, Victoria Chen looked nothing like the composed philanthropist from the Google images. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes red-rimmed, her voice cracking as she spoke. Mr. Sullivan, I'm somewhere over the Pacific right now, racing to get to Emma. They tell me you saved her life, that you refused to leave her side. I don't know you, but I know what you did, and I know you're still there with her. Please, her voice broke. Please do whatever the doctors say needs to be done. Save my baby. I trust you. I have to trust you. She's all I have left. The video ended. The room was silent except for the steady beep of Emma's monitors. Dr. Morrison cleared his throat. "Mr. Sullivan, I need you to understand the risks. Any cardiac surgery has dangers, especially in a child. There's a chance of complications, bleeding, infection, but without the surgery, she'll die." Michael's voice was steady despite the tremor in his hands. "Eventually, yes, her heart can't sustain this stress long term." Michael looked at Emma, so small in the hospital bed. She was awake now, watching him with those serious grey eyes. He thought of Sarah, of all the medical decisions he'd made for her, each one feeling like it carried the weight of the world. But those had been his decisions to make. This was someone else's child. "Emma, honey," he said softly, taking her hand, "the doctors need to fix your heart. It's going to be scary, but it will help you feel better. Will it hurt? You'll be asleep for the surgery. When you wake up, it might hurt some, but the nurses have medicine to help with that. Will you be here when I wake up? I promise." She nodded solemnly, then looked at Dr. Morrison. "Are you a good fixer?" The surgeon smiled. "I'm very good at fixing hearts. I've fixed hundreds of them." "Okay." Emma squeezed Michael's hand. "Mr. Michael says it's okay." The next hour passed in a blur of consent forms. Michael's hand shook as he signed his name next to medical guardian, the pen Dr. Morrison had handed him feeling impossibly heavy. Each signature felt like a promise, to Emma, to her racing mother, to the universe that sometimes asked ordinary people to make extraordinary choices. Lily had gone home to shower and change, promising to return before the surgery. The pre-op. Nurses came to prepare Emma, explaining each step in terms a 6-year-old could understand. She was brave until they came to wheel her to surgery, then her composure cracked. "I want my mommy," she whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. Michael walked beside the gurney, holding her hand. "She's coming as fast as she can, and I'll be right here when you wake up. Remember what we talked about? What are we going to be? Make when you're all better?" "Chocolate chip cookies," Emma managed through her tears. "That's right, the best chocolate chip cookies ever." At the OR doors, he had to let go. Emma's small hand slipped from his as they wheeled her through. The doors swung shut, and Michael was left standing in the hallway, suddenly unsure what to do with his empty hands. He found his way back to the waiting room, where other families sat in their own bubbles of worry. A mother knitting furiously, a father pacing by the windows, an elderly couple holding hands in silence, all of them waiting for news, for hope, for miracles. Michael's phone buzzed. "Lily, on my way back. Brought you clean clothes. You've got this, Dad." He smiled despite everything. Then another text from an unknown number. "Mr. Sullivan, this is Victoria Chen. I've gotten your number from my lawyers. Landing in 12 hours. Please tell Emma I love her. Please tell her I'm sorry. Thank you for being there. Thank you for being the person I couldn't be." He stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "She knows you love her. She's brave, just like her mom. Surgery just started. I'll be here when she wakes up." 3 dots appeared, showing she was typing, then stopped, started again. "Finally, I've spent 3 years running from what happened to David, running from the fear that Emma inherited his condition. I convinced myself she was fine, that lightning doesn't strike twice. I was a coward." Michael thought of Sarah, of his own fears, of all the ways grief made cowards of the bravest people. "You're coming now. That's what matters. 2 hours, the OR nurse had said. 2 hours, while surgeons repaired a tiny heart, while a mother raced across the sky, while a man who'd started the day planning to work 2 jobs sat in a hospital waiting room, holding vigil for a child he'd only met a handful of times. He thought about the pen Dr. Morrison had given him to sign the consent forms, such a simple object to carry such weight. Every decision in those signatures, to try, to hope, to believe that broken hearts could be mended. Lily arrived with coffee and a change of clothes, settling beside him without words. She pulled out her chemistry textbook, but didn't open it, just held it in her lap like a talisman. Together they waited, watching the clock, watching the OR doors, watching for miracles dressed in surgical scrubs. Time moved differently during surgery. Each minute an hour, each hour a lifetime. Michael found himself praying again. The same. Desperate prayers from yesterday mixed with new ones, for steady hands in the OR, for Emma's small heart to be strong, for Victoria Chen to find peace in her journey home. Mostly, he prayed that he'd made the right choice. That when Emma woke up, when her mother finally arrived, when the cookies were baked and the crisis passed, everyone would understand that sometimes love looked like a stranger signing papers with a borrowed pen, promising to stand guard over someone else's most precious gift. 3 days had passed since the surgery. Emma was recovering remarkably well, though she remained sedated most of the time, her small body working hard to heal. Michael had barely left the hospital, catching naps in the chair beside her bed, living on cafeteria coffee and whatever food Lily brought him. He'd called in sick to both jobs again, knowing his supervisor's patience was wearing thin, but unable to leave Emma alone. The morning sun was just beginning to filter through the blinds when the commotion started in the hallway. Raised voices, the sharp click of expensive heels on linoleum, the rustle of movement that suggested an entourage rather than a single person. Michael looked up from the book he'd been reading aloud to Emma, Charlotte's Web, which seemed appropriate given the circumstances, to see a woman burst through the doorway. Victoria Chen looked nothing like her professional photos. Her usually perfect hair hung limp around her face, her designer suit wrinkled from 20 hours of travel. Her grey eyes, Emma's eyes, were wild with a combination of exhaustion, fear, and desperate hope. She stopped short when she saw Michael, seeming to register his presence for the first time. Behind her, 2 men in suits hovered nervously, clearly security personnel who'd been running to keep up with her. "You're Michael Sullivan." It wasn't a question. Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying. He stood slowly, setting the book aside. "Ms. Chen." But she'd already turned to Emma, a sound escaping her that was part sob, part prayer. She approached the bed as if drawn by a magnet, her hands shaking as she reached for her daughter. "Baby, Emma, baby, Mommy's here." Her fingers ghosted over Emma's face, afraid to touch, afraid not to. "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." Emma's eyes fluttered open, focusing slowly. "Mommy." "I'm here, baby, I'm right here." Michael stepped back, giving them space, but Victoria's hand shot out and grabbed his arm. "Don't go, please." He stayed, watching as she peppered Emma's face with kisses, tears streaming down her cheeks. Emma seemed confused by the intensity of her mother's emotion, still groggy from the medications. "Did I miss my birthday again?" Emma asked. "No, baby, no." Victoria's laugh was broken. "I just missed you. I missed you so much." One of the security men cleared his throat. "Ms. Chen, the hospital administration would like to speak with you about—" "Not now, Marcus." Her voice carried an edge of steel that explained how she'd built a billion-dollar empire. "Nothing matters right now, except Emma." The men retreated to the hallway. Victoria finally seemed to remember Michael was there, turning to face him without letting go of Emma's hand. "They told me what you did. CPR for 8 minutes until the paramedics arrived. You saved her life. Anyone would have—" "No." She cut him off. "They wouldn't have. The EMTs said your technique was perfect. They said another minute or 2 and she would have—" She couldn't finish. "And then you stayed. 3 days. They told me you haven't left her side for 3 days." She was scared. She needed someone. Victoria studied him, seeming to see him for the first time, taking in his rumpled clothes, the exhaustion etched on his face, the gentle way he'd automatically straightened Emma's blanket when he'd stood. "The neighbor, Mrs. Chen." "She's your mother?" Michael asked. "My aunt, my father's sister, the only family I have left besides Emma." Victoria's voice was bitter. "I've been so careful to keep Emma's identity private, to protect her from the media, from people who might try to use her. I never imagined the real danger was inside her all along." "You couldn't have known." "I did know." The words came out sharp, angry at herself. "David, my husband, died from the same condition. The doctors told me there was a chance Emma inherited it. They wanted to run tests, but I I couldn't face it. I told myself she was fine. She seemed so healthy, so normal. I convinced myself the universe wouldn't be that cruel. Emma had drifted back to sleep, her small hand still clasped in her mother's. Victoria sank into the chair on the opposite side of the bed, from where Michael had spent his vigil. Instead, I was the cruel one, leaving her, always leaving her, telling myself I was making the world better, saving other people's children while my own. She shook her head. What kind of mother doesn't even have a working phone number for emergencies? Michael thought of all the judgments he'd made in the past 3 days, all the anger he'd felt at this absent mother. Seeing her now, broken and raw, he understood. Grief made people run in different ways. He'd buried himself in work to avoid the empty spaces Sarah left behind. Victoria had tried to outrun her fear by saving the world. She talks about you all the time, he said quietly. How you help sick people, how you call her every night even when it's morning where you are. She's proud of you. Victoria looked up at him. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. She almost died while I was giving a speech about preventable deaths. In Southeast Asia, the irony isn't lost on me. But she didn't die. She's here. You're here. That's what matters now. A nurse came in to check Emma's vitals, smiling at the scene. She's been asking for her mommy for 3 days. Good to finally meet you, Ms. Chen. Mr. Sullivan here hasn't left her side once. We've been calling him the guardian angel of pediatric ICU. Victoria watched Michael interact with the nurse, saw how he knew exactly which monitors to check, how he automatically noted Emma's oxygen levels, how natural he looked in this role of protector. You have a daughter, she said when the nurse left. It wasn't a question. She'd done her research during the flight. Lily, she's 16. Your wife? Passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. The words carried weight. One grieving spouse to another. Emma's father died when she was 2. Heart attack in his sleep. The same condition Emma has, though we didn't know it then. They sat in companionable silence. 2 single parents on either side of a sleeping child, bound together by tragedy and grace. I need to pay you, Victoria said suddenly. For your time, lost wages, whatever you need. No, the word came out, harder than he intended. I didn't do it for money. Then why? Why stay 3 days with a child you barely know? Michael looked at Emma, peaceful in sleep. So different from those terrifying moments on his kitchen floor. Because she needed someone. Because I could. Because that's what you do. Victoria stared at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. They said you signed the consent forms. You took legal responsibility for her surgery. Someone had to. You could have been sued if anything went wrong. You risked everything for a stranger's child. She's 6 years old. That's not a stranger. That's just a little girl who needed help. Victoria's phone buzzed. Her assistant, probably, or lawyers, or any of the 100 people who demanded her attention. She ignored it, her focus entirely on the man across from her who'd saved her daughter's life and asked for nothing in return. Thank you, she said finally, the words inadequate but sincere. Thank you for being the person I should have been. You're here now, Michael repeated. That's what matters. Emma stirred between them, mumbling something about chocolate chip cookies. Despite everything, both adults smiled. She's been promised cookies, Michael explained. When she's better, then she'll have cookies, Victoria said with the same decisiveness that had built a global foundation. The best chocolate chip cookies money can buy. Actually, Michael said gently, I think she just wants homemade ones. From a box mix is fine. She helped me set the timer before her heart stopped. Before their worlds collided in the most unlikely way. Before a Tuesday afternoon became a life-changing moment for 2 families who'd never known they needed each other. Victoria nodded, understanding. Sometimes the simplest things, a box mix, a kitchen timer, a promise kept, mattered more than all the money in the world. Over the next 2 days, Victoria Chen transformed the hospital room into a command center. Laptops, phones, and assistants appeared and disappeared like magic. but she never strayed far from Emma's bed. Michael watched her work, fascinated by the contrast between the powerful CEO barking orders into her phone and the gentle mother who sang soft lullabies when Emma stirred in her sleep. "I'm not usually like this," Victoria said during one of the quiet moments, catching Michael's observant gaze. "So scattered. I run a billion-dollar foundation. I negotiate with world leaders." But seeing her lying there, she clutched the locket at her throat, a gesture Michael had noticed her repeat often. "You don't have to explain," he said. "When someone you love is hurt, all the competence in the world doesn't matter." She studied him with those sharp, grey eyes. "You lost your wife to cancer." "Yes. How do you do it? Keep going. Single parent, working multiple jobs." She gestured helplessly. "I have every resource in the world, and I still failed Emma." Michael was quiet for a moment, watching Emma sleep. Lily had gone to school after he'd finally convinced her he was fine, that she couldn't miss any more classes with her chemistry test coming up. "You don't fail them by being imperfect," he said finally. "You fail them by giving up. Sarah made me promise. Not to be perfect, just to keep showing up. Some days that means making breakfast. Some days it means holding a stranger's child while she has heart surgery." Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, and for the first time since Michael had met her, she declined the call. "That was the Singapore health minister," she said, almost amazed at herself. 6 months of negotiations to get that meeting. Emma's more important. Yes. She said it like a revelation. She is. The next morning, Victoria cornered Dr. Morrison. In the hallway, Michael could hear her rapid-fire questions through the door. Survival rates, long-term prognosis, best pediatric cardiac programs in the world. When she returned, she looked both determined and vulnerable. "He says she'll need monitoring for life," she said. "Regular checkups, possible future procedures. But with proper care, she can live a normal life. Play sports, have children someday. Everything? That's wonderful news." Victoria was quiet for a moment, then, "I need to know everything. Every detail about what happened. The EMTs gave me a report, but I need to hear it from you." So Michael told her about the coloring, the purple butterfly for Mommy, about Emma's sudden confusion, the way her face went grey. He described the CPR, counting compressions, the endless minutes before help arrived. Victoria listened without interrupting, her knuckles white as she gripped Emma's hand. 8 minutes, she whispered when he finished. "You kept my baby alive for 8 minutes with just your hands and determination." The CPR class was Sarah's idea. She insisted we both take it when Lily was little. Said you never knew when you might need it. Sarah saved Emma too then, in a way. Michael had never thought of it like that. It made his throat tight. That afternoon, Victoria met Lily for the first time. Michael's daughter arrived after school with his mail, and another. Change of clothes, stopping short when she saw the elegant woman sitting in her father's usual chair. "You must be Lily," Victoria said, standing. "I'm Victoria, Emma's mom. Your father has told me so much about you." Lily, usually so composed, seemed struck shy. "Nice to meet you. Straight-A student, volleyball player, and apparently the one who keeps your father functioning." Victoria smiled. "He mentioned you're hoping for a science scholarship, if I can keep my grades up." Michael watched Victoria process this information, saw the wheels turning behind those calculating eyes. He recognized the look. She was planning something. "Mom, tell me more about the foundation," Emma said. She was more alert now, able to sit up for short periods. The color had returned to her cheeks, though she still tired easily. Victoria launched into a gentle explanation of her work, but Michael noticed her assistant hovering in the doorway with an urgent expression. The demands of running a global organization didn't pause for personal crises. "Go," he said quietly. "Handle what you need to handle. We'll be here." She hesitated. "But Emma wants to hear about how Wilbur meets Charlotte," Emma piped up. "Mr. Michael does the best voices." So Victoria reluctantly stepped into the hallway for her call, while Michael picked up where they'd left off in the story. Lily settled in to do homework, and for a moment it felt almost normal, if normal included reading to a billionaire's daughter in a cardiac ICU. When Victoria returned, her professional mask had slipped back into place, but it cracked again when she saw Emma giggling at Michael's impression of Templeton the rat. She stood in the doorway, one hand pressed to her locket, watching the scene with an expression of wonder and pain. Later that evening, after Emma had fallen asleep and Lily had gone home, Victoria pulled out a leather portfolio. My lawyers drew. "These up on the plane," she said, producing a stack of documents. "Payment for your time, lost wages, pain and suffering. I told you I don't want please. Let me finish." She took a breath. "I've spent the last 3 years throwing money at problems, building hospitals in places that need them, funding research, thinking I could buy my way out of guilt. But you did something money can't. You gave Emma what she needed most, someone who stayed. Anyone would have." "Stop saying that." Her voice was fierce. "I've met senators who wouldn't have stayed 10 minutes without a photo op. I know billionaires who would have called 911 and washed their hands of it. You stayed. You signed papers that could have ruined you. You're still here, reading Charlotte's Web and making my daughter laugh. So please, let me do this one thing. I know how to do. Let me help you the only way I can right now." Michael looked at the papers, then at Victoria's face. He saw not a billionaire trying to pay off a debt, but a mother desperate to express gratitude too large for words. "If you really want to help," he said slowly, "there is something. Anything. Lily's chemistry textbook is 3 editions out of date. She borrows the current one from a friend to do homework. And her volleyball uniform, the school's starting to ask questions about the payment." Victoria stared at him. "That's all textbooks and a uniform? That's what we need." She laughed, but it sounded like crying. "Do you know how refreshing you are? Do you have any idea how many people I meet who see me as nothing but a checkbook? You're Emma's mom, that's all." "I see." She looked down at her locket, opened it to reveal a tiny photo, Emma as a baby, and a handsome man who must have been David. "He would have liked you." "David. He always said the best people were the ones who showed up when it mattered." "He sounds wise." He was. "I've been so afraid of losing Emma the way I lost him that I've been losing her anyway, one trip at a time." She closed the locket. "That changes now. Everything changes now." She put the papers away, pulled out her phone instead. "Textbooks and volleyball uniforms. Consider it done. But Michael, this isn't over. I don't forget debts, especially ones that can never truly be repaid." Michael wanted to protest again, but something in her expression stopped him. This wasn't about money anymore. This was about a woman learning to accept help, just as he was, learning to give it, both of them fumbling toward a new kind of grace. Emma's eyes opened slowly on the 7th day after surgery, clearer than they'd been since the operation. The morning sun painted golden stripes across her hospital blanket, and for the first time she looked like a little girl again, rather than a patient. "Mr. Michael," her voice was stronger now, almost normal. "Are you really a superhero?" Michael looked up from the notebook where he'd been helping Lily with chemistry problems via text. "What makes you ask that, sweetheart?" "Mommy says you saved." "Me? Like Superman? But you don't have a cape." "Not all heroes wear capes," Victoria said from the doorway, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She'd started bringing him coffee every morning, having quickly learned his preference for 1 sugar, no cream. Some wear warehouse uniforms and work 2 jobs to take care of their families. Emma considered this seriously. "Can I draw you a cape?" "I'd be honored." Victoria handed him his coffee, their fingers brushing briefly. "Lily's here. She's talking to the nurses about volunteer programs. I think she's planning to be a doctor. She's mentioned it. We just haven't figured out how to make it happen yet." The words slipped out before he could stop them, another reminder of the vast gulf between their worlds. "We'll figure it out," Victoria said quietly, and something in her tone made it sound like a promise. Emma was attempting to sit up, reaching for the coloring books Lily had brought. Her movements were still careful, but the improvement from a week ago was remarkable. "Where's Lily? I want to show her my scar. It's really cool." "I'll get her," Michael said, but Victoria touched his arm. "Actually, could we talk for a moment first? Emma, honey, I'll send Lily in just a minute, okay?" Emma nodded, already absorbed in selecting the perfect crayon for Michael's superhero cape. In the hallway, Victoria seemed uncharacteristically nervous. She kept touching her locket, a gesture Michael now recognized as her tell when she was working through something difficult. "I've been doing a lot of thinking this week," she began, "about priorities, about what really matters, about how I've been living my life." Michael waited, sensing this was important. "I built the foundation to honor David's memory, to make sure other families didn't suffer like we did. But somewhere along the way, I started using it as an excuse to run away. Every trip, every conference, every initiative, they were all important. But they were also walls I built between myself and the fear of losing Emma." "Fear makes us do strange things," Michael said gently. "It does. But watching you this week, seeing how you and Lily support each other despite everything you've been through, it's shown me what I've been missing." She took a breath. "I'm restructuring the foundation. I'll still run it, but I'm hiring regional directors, delegating more. I'm going to be home for Emma." "That's wonderful. There's more." She pulled out her phone, showing him a photo of a building. "This is the new Michael Sullivan Center for Pediatric Cardiac Care. It'll be built right here, attached to this hospital. Free care for any child who needs it, with a special focus on early detection of congenital conditions." Michael felt the hallway tilt slightly. "Victoria, I can't." "You can and you will." Her CEO voice was back, but her eyes were soft. "Do you know how many children you'll save? How many families will stay whole because of what you did for Emma? I just did what anyone, if you say anyone would have done, one more time. I'm going to have you banned from the hospital." But she was smiling. "This is happening, Michael. The board's already approved it. We break ground in 6 months." Before he could process this, Lily appeared around the corner, practically glowing. "Dad!" "The volunteer coordinator says if I get 40 hours of service, she'll write me a recommendation letter for pre-med programs." "That's great, sweetheart." He tried to match her enthusiasm despite feeling overwhelmed, and Victoria says she knows. "Someone on the admissions committee at Johns Hopkins," Lily continued, then caught herself. "I mean Ms. Chen, sorry." "Victoria is fine," Victoria said warmly. "And yes, I made a few calls. Lily's grades speak for themselves, but a strong recommendation never hurts." Michael looked between his daughter and Victoria, understanding dawning. They'd been planning this together. "Go on in," Victoria told Lily. "Emma's dying to show you her battle scar." After Lily disappeared into the room, Victoria turned back to Michael. "She's remarkable. You've raised an incredible daughter." "She raised herself mostly. I just tried to keep up." "Stop doing that." Victoria's voice was suddenly fierce. "Stop diminishing what you've done. You lost your wife, kept working 2 jobs, raised a brilliant daughter, and still had enough compassion left to save a stranger's child. Do you have any idea how extraordinary that is?" Through the window, they could see Emma and Lily bent over the coloring book together. Emma chattering excitedly while Lily listened with the patience of someone who'd grown up too fast, but hadn't. "Lost her kindness. They look like sisters," Victoria said softly. "Yeah, they do. Michael." She turned to face him fully. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. These past 7 days, has this been an obligation? Staying here, helping with Emma, is it just because you feel responsible?" Michael thought about the question, about the hours spent reading stories, the careful attention to medication schedules, the way his heart had lifted each time Emma smiled. "No," he said simply. "It stopped being an obligation the moment she asked for chocolate chip cookies." Victoria's smile was radiant. "Good, because Emma's going to need ongoing care. Regular checkups, monitoring, someone who understands her condition and can advocate for her." I know you have your jobs, your life, but I was wondering, hoping, you want me to keep being part of her life? I want more than that. She looked through the window at their daughters. I want us to be friends, real friends, the kind who make cookies from box mix and don't care that one of them could buy a cookie factory, the kind who understand that some things matter more than money. Michael extended his hand. Friends, she shook it, her grip firm despite the tears in her eyes. Friends who are about to be ambushed by a 6-year-old with a new coloring book. Sure enough, Emma's voice carried through the door. Mommy, Mister, Michael, come see. Lily helped me draw the best superhero ever. They entered to find Emma holding up her masterpiece, a figure in a warehouse uniform with a bright red cape, standing next to a smaller figure with a stethoscope, presumably Dr. Lily. In the corner, she'd drawn a heart with wings. That's you, saving me, Emma explained to Michael. And that's Lily when she becomes a doctor, and the heart has wings because mine is all better now and can fly. It's perfect, Michael said, his voice thick. We're going to frame it, Victoria announced. It'll be the first thing people see when they enter the new center. Emma beamed, then yawned. The excitement was tiring her out. As she settled back against her pillows, she looked at the four of them, her mother, Michael, Lily, and herself, and smiled sleepily. We're like a family, she murmured. A different kind, but still a family. No one corrected her, because in that moment, in that small hospital room with sunlight streaming through the windows and a superhero portrait propped against the water pitcher, she was absolutely right. 2 weeks after Emma's surgery, life had settled into something resembling normal. Emma was home, recovering under the watchful eye of a private nurse Victoria had hired. Michael had returned to his jobs, though his warehouse supervisor had made it clear he was on thin ice after missing so many days. The gas station had simply replaced him. He was heating up leftover soup for dinner when the knock came at his door. Not the timid tap of Mrs. Chen or the familiar rhythm of Lily's friends, but a confident, purposeful knock that somehow conveyed importance. Victoria stood in his hallway, looking impossibly out of place in her designer suit against the backdrop of faded apartment carpeting. Behind her lurked Marcus, her security chief, trying to blend into the wall, a futile effort for a man his size. May I come in? She asked. I promise Marcus will stay outside. He's just protective. Of course. Michael stepped aside, acutely, aware of the water stain on the ceiling, the second-hand furniture, the stack of overdue bills he'd hastily shoved into a drawer. Victoria entered without seeming to notice any of it, though he knew those sharp eyes missed nothing. She carried a leather portfolio and an expression of determined purpose he'd come to recognize. Where's Lily? She asked. Study group. She'll be home around 8. Good. I wanted to talk to you alone first. She set the portfolio on his kitchen table, the same table where Emma had collapsed. If the memory affected her, she didn't show it. Coffee. I can make some. Sit. It wasn't a request. Please. I need to say this and I need you to listen. Really listen. Not just wait for your turn to deflect whatever I'm offering. Michael sat, watching, as she pulled out a thick folder of documents, her movements precise, despite an underlying nervousness he'd rarely seen from her. I've spent the last 2 weeks investigating you, she began, which wasn't what he'd expected. Not in a creepy way. Well, maybe a little creepy, but I needed to understand who you really are, Victoria. You have an engineering degree from Cal Poly, graduated with honors. You were working for Boeing when Sarah got sick. You gave up a career track that would have led to 6 figures to care for her. She pulled out papers as she spoke, laying them out like evidence. You've been working 2 minimum wage jobs for 3 years. You're behind on rent. Lily's college fund has exactly $240 in it. Michael felt heat rise in his cheeks. You had no right. I had every right. Her voice was calm but implacable. You saved my daughter's life. You signed papers accepting legal responsibility for her. You think I wouldn't want to know everything about the man who did that? She pulled out more papers. Your landlord says you're the best tenant he's ever had, even when you're late with rent. Your warehouse supervisor says you never miss a shift, unless it's for Lily. Her teachers universally describe you as engaged, supportive, present. Do you know how rare that is? What's your point? My point is that you're drowning. She leaned forward. You're an exceptional man doing everything right, and you're drowning because the system is broken. Because good people shouldn't have to work themselves to death just to keep a roof over their children's heads. We're managing, Lily turned, down the volleyball team dinner last week because she knew you couldn't afford it. She's been wearing the same shoes for 2 years. She studies at her friend's house, not just for the quiet, but because Jennifer's mum feeds her. Victoria's voice gentled. I know about sacrifice, Michael. I know about putting on a brave face. But there's a difference between sacrifice and unnecessary suffering. She opened the portfolio fully, revealing architectural drawings. This is the Michael Sullivan Center for Pediatric Cardiac Care. I showed you a photo before, but these are the full plans. State-of-the-art facility, fully funded for the next 50 years. It needs a director. Michael's chest tightened. I'm not qualified. You have an engineering degree. You understand systems, logistics, problem-solving. You kept my daughter alive with your bare hands and stayed by her side for a week. You know what families go through in medical crises? Who could be more qualified? Victoria, I can't just... The salary is $200,000 a year to start, full benefits, flexible hours so you can be there for Lily. There's a signing bonus that would clear your debts and fully fund her college education. She pushed the papers toward him. One signature, Michael. One signature, and you never have to choose between paying rent and buying Lily new shoes again. Michael stared at the contracts, the numbers swimming before his eyes. More money than he'd ever dreamed of. Security, stability, everything he'd been struggling to provide. This is charity, he said, quietly. This is justice. Victoria's voice was fierce. This is the universe trying to balance the scales. You gave my daughter life. Let me give yours back to you. I can't run a medical facility. I don't know anything about... You'll have a full staff, administrators, medical directors, people who know the technical side. What you'll do is what you do best. Care about people. Make sure no family faces what you faced with Sarah without support. Make sure no child's life depends on whether someone in the neighborhood knows CPR. She pulled out another document. There's more. The foundation wants to establish a scholarship fund in Lily's name. Full ride to any university, any program. Pre-med, if that's what she wants. Engineering, like her father. Whatever dreams she has, she'll have the chance to pursue them. You can't just... I can. She stood pacing to his small window that looked out on the parking lot. Do you know what I thought about on that flight from Singapore? 20 hours of thinking about what would have happened if you hadn't been there. If Emma had been with a babysitter who didn't know CPR. If you'd been the kind of person who would have called 911 and stepped back. She turned to face him. I have $2 billion, Michael. $2 billion. And it couldn't buy me what you gave freely. Compassion, skill, presence. So yes, I can do this. The question is whether you'll let me. What would people say, that I took advantage? Let them talk. She returned to the table, sat across from him. I've been thinking about what Emma said, about us being a different kind of family. She's right. We are. Bound by crisis maybe, but bound nonetheless. And families help each other. Michael picked up the contract, really looking at it for the first time. His name was already on the letterhead. Michael Sullivan. Director. It looked impossibly official. What if I'm terrible at it? Victoria smiled. Then you'll learn, the same way you learned to braid Lily's hair and make Halloween costumes and stretch $1 into 5. With patience and determination and love. This changes everything. Yes. She reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. It changes everything. That's the point. They sat in silence for a moment, her hand warm on his. Through the thin walls, he could hear his neighbor's TV, the distant sound of traffic, all the noise of a life lived paycheck to paycheck. Lily, Would never have to worry about college, he said slowly. Never. We could get a place with reliable heat. You could get a house with a yard, maybe a dog. Emma likes dogs. She does. Victoria squeezed his hand. She also likes you. Asks about you every day. When you're coming to visit, if you'll really make cookies with her. Michael thought about Sarah, what she would say. She'd probably laugh at his stubbornness, tell him pride was a luxury they couldn't afford, tell him to think about Lily, about the future, about the chance to help other families facing their darkest moments. Okay, he said, okay? Okay. He picked up the pen Victoria had laid beside the contracts. But I have conditions. Name them. I do this my way. No special treatment because I know you. Every family gets the same care, whether they're billionaires or living paycheck to paycheck. Agreed. And we really do make cookies from a box mix. In my kitchen, well, my current kitchen. Emma deserves her chocolate chip cookies. Victoria's smile could have powered the city. Deal. He signed his name, each letter a leap of faith. When he finished, Victoria gathered the papers with the efficiency of someone who'd closed million-dollar deals before breakfast. Welcome to the Chen Foundation, Director Sullivan. You start in 2 weeks. That should give you time to give notice. At your jobs and find a house. She stood, then paused. Thank you. For what? For saying yes, for letting me do this, for being too stubborn to accept help until I found the right way to offer it. She moved toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Michael? Lily already knows. She helped me plan the scholarship parameters. That girl of yours is going to change. The world, like mother, like daughter, Michael said without thinking, then froze, but Victoria just smiled. Yes, she said softly, exactly like that. 6 months later, the Michael Sullivan Center for Pediatric Cardiac Care was more than just architectural drawings. The building rose from the ground like a promise, its glass and steel frame reflecting the morning sun. Michael stood at the construction, his sight, hard hat in hand, watching crews install the specialized equipment that would save young lives. The pediatric surgical suite will be ready next week, Victoria said, appearing beside him with her own hard hat tucked under her arm. She came by every few days, ostensibly to check on progress, but really, Michael suspected, to check on him. Dr. Morrison is beside himself with excitement about the new equipment. It's incredible, Michael said, still sometimes unable to believe. This was real. When I think about what this place will mean to families, you mean what you've already made it mean. Victoria pulled out her tablet, showing him statistics. 14 children have already received treatment through the Foundation's Bridge program. 3 emergency surgeries. All because you insisted we couldn't wait for the building to be finished to start helping people. It had been Michael's first major decision as director to begin operating immediately out of temporary facilities while construction continued. Victoria had backed him without hesitation, and they'd been saving lives ever since. "Daddy! Victoria!" Emma's voice rang out. Across the construction site, she ran toward them, Lily close behind, both girls wearing matching hard hats that the construction foreman had specially ordered in their sizes. At 6.5, Emma had transformed from the pale, fragile child in the hospital to a bundle of energy that seemed determined to make up for lost time. Her scar was hidden beneath a T-shirt that proclaimed "Future Doctor" in glittering letters, a gift from Lily. "Careful, Em," Lily called, but she was smiling. The 16-year-old had become 17, and with it had come an acceptance letter to Johns Hopkins's early admission program. She wouldn't start for another year, but the promise of it had lifted a weight from her shoulders that Michael hadn't even realized she'd been carrying. "Look what we found." Emma held up a perfectly round rock. "It's for the memorial garden. Lily says we can paint it with someone's name." The memorial garden had been Lily's idea, a place where families could remember children who hadn't been as fortunate as Emma. Michael had worried it might be too sad, but Lily had insisted that grief needed space too, and Victoria had agreed. "That's perfect, sweetheart," Victoria said, kneeling to examine the rock. The gesture was natural now, the stiffness of those early days replaced by genuine ease. "Who should we dedicate it to?" "Daddy suggested we make the first one for David," Emma said solemnly. "My first daddy, because he would have liked that other kids get help for their hearts." Victoria's hand went to her locket, but she was smiling through the tears. "He would have loved that, and he would have loved you, Lily, Michael, all of this." The four of them stood together, looking at the building taking shape. It had become their Saturday tradition, checking progress, having lunch at the diner down the street, spending the afternoon together. Not quite a family in any traditional sense, but something unique and precious nonetheless. "Race you to the cafeteria, skeleton," Emma challenged Lily, and they were off, leaving the adults to follow at a more sedate pace. "She's going to run that." "Poor security guard, ragged again," Victoria observed, watching Marcus try to keep up with the girls while maintaining professional dignity. "He loves it," Michael said. "I caught him teaching them self-defense moves last week." They walked in companionable silence, the ease between them hard-won over months of shared dinners, late-night planning sessions, and the gradual breaking down of walls. "I have something to tell you," Victoria said as they reached the frame of what would be the main entrance. "I've been offered a position. Who wants me to head their global childhood disease initiative? It would mean traveling again. Not as much as before, but some." Michael felt something cold settle in his stomach. "Oh," I turned it down. He stopped walking. "Victoria, if it's important work, this is important work." She gestured to the building, to their daughters laughing in the distance. "Being Emma's mum is important work. Being your—" She paused, color rising in her cheeks. "Being your friend is important work." "Friend?" Michael repeated, the word feeling both right and insufficient. "Unless—" Victoria took a breath, the confident CEO suddenly looking vulnerable. "Michael, these past 6 months, working together, building this, becoming whatever we've become. I need to know if I'm the only one who feels—" "You're not." The words came out rushed, desperate. "You're not the only one." They stood facing each other in the skeleton of the building that bore his name, surrounded by the promise of lives that would be saved. And Michael thought about how many different kinds of hearts could need healing. "I'm scared," Victoria admitted. Since David, I haven't let anyone close. And you're not just anyone. You're the man who saved Emma, who's Lily's father, who runs the center. If we try this and it doesn't work, then we'll figure it out," Michael said, echoing words she'd once said to him. "The same way we've figured out everything else, with patience and determination and—" "Love," Victoria suggested softly. "Yeah, that too." Emma's voice interrupted whatever might have happened next. "Mom, Mr. Michael, come see. Lily found the perfect spot for Daddy's rock." They walked toward their daughters, not touching but close enough that their hands brushed with each step. In the distance, the city sprawled beneath a perfect blue sky, and Michael thought about butterflies and transformations, about hearts. That stopped, and hearts that kept beating against all odds. That evening they had dinner at Michael and Lily's new house. Nothing mansion-like, just a comfortable home with enough bedrooms and a yard where they'd planted a garden. Emma helped set the table while Lily finished her homework. The domesticity of it all, still sometimes taking Michael's breath away. "I have an announcement," Lily said once they were all seated. "I've decided on my specialty, pediatric cardiology. I want to work at the center when I'm done with medical school." "That's 8 years away," Emma protested. "I'll be so old." 14 isn't old, Lily laughed. "And you can help me study. We'll be the best cardiac team ever." Victoria raised her water glass. "To the future Doctors Sullivan and Chen." "To family," Michael added quietly. They clinked glasses, crystal for the adults, plastic tumblers decorated with superheroes for Emma. Outside, the sun set over their small corner of the world, painting everything golden. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep on the couch watching a movie, and Lily had retreated to her room to Video chat with friends. Michael and Victoria stood together in the kitchen washing dishes, a mundane task made somehow precious by the simple fact of doing it together. "I meant what I said earlier," Victoria said, handing him a plate to dry. "About being scared, but also about everything else." "I know." He set the plate aside, turned to face her. "I'm scared too. But Sarah used to say the best things in life usually start with being terrified." Smart woman. She would have liked. "You would have loved what you've done for Lily, for other families." He paused. "Would have probably told me to stop being an idiot about 6 months ago." Victoria laughed, the sound filling the kitchen with warmth. "I like her already." From the living room, Emma stirred, mumbling something about chocolate chip cookies in her sleep. They both smiled. "We should probably make those cookies soon," Victoria said. "Can't have her thinking we don't keep our promises." "Tomorrow," Michael suggested. "All 4 of us?" "Tomorrow," Victoria agreed, "and the day after that, and the day after that." It was a promise and a plan, a future sketched in chocolate chips and mixing bowls, in shared dinners and homework help, in the slow, careful building of something that transcended traditional definitions. They stood together in the kitchen of the house that the center had made possible, in the life that crisis had created, in the family that love had built despite all odds. Through the window, the first stars were appearing, and somewhere in the city, the skeleton of the Michael Sullivan Center stood ready to become what it was always meant to be. A place where broken hearts found healing, where families found hope, where security guards learned to chase laughing children, and where sometimes, if you were very lucky, saving one life could lead to saving your own. 1 year to the day after Emma's heart stopped in Michael's kitchen, the 4 of them sat around that same table, though now it resided in a different kitchen, in a house filled with laughter instead of worry. Sunlight streamed through windows that didn't stick, illuminating a scene that would have seemed impossible just 12 months ago. Emma and Lily bent over a new coloring book, their heads close together as they worked on a picture of a family of butterflies. The purple crayon, Emma's favorite, moved in careful strokes, no longer held by trembling fingers, but by hands steady and sure. "Make sure the daddy butterfly has glasses," Emma instructed. "Like Michael." "I don't always wear glasses," Michael protested from where he stood at the stove, stirring a pot of homemade soup, a far cry from the canned variety that used to be his staple. "You do when you read to us," Emma countered, which was true enough. Victoria sat at the table with the girls, her laptop closed for once, a cup of coffee cooling at her elbow. She wore jeans and one of Michael's old engineering school sweatshirts, her Billionaire armor set aside for their quiet Sunday tradition. 1 year, she said softly, her hand finding Michael's as he passed. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday. Sometimes it feels like a lifetime ago." "I know." He squeezed her fingers gently. They'd been together officially for 4 months now, though. In truth, they'd been building toward this from the moment he'd signed those papers in the ICU. "Tell us the story again," Emma requested, not looking up from her coloring. It had become something of a ritual, this retelling. Not the scary parts. Those were glossed over for Emma's sake, but the story of how a Tuesday afternoon had changed 4 lives forever. "Well," Michael began, settling into his chair, "once upon a time there was a little girl who came to color butterflies." He told it simply, focusing on the bravery and love rather than the fear. How Emma had been so strong, how Lily had been so helpful, how Mommy had flown across the world to be there, how sometimes families found each other in the most unexpected ways. "And then we all lived happily ever after," Emma concluded with satisfaction, "except it's not after yet. It's still during." "That's very wise, Em," Lily said, adding a small butterfly to the corner, one with a tiny stethoscope. Her early acceptance to Johns Hopkins had been the talk of her school, but she wore the achievement with characteristic grace. "Can we make the cookies now?" Emma asked. "The special ones." The special ones were chocolate chip cookies from a box mix, the same brand Michael had been making that day, though now they could afford any bakery in the city. But Emma insisted on the box mix, made in Michael's kitchen, with everyone helping. "After lunch," Victoria said, then caught Michael's eye with a meaningful look. "Actually, there's something we wanted to talk to you both about first." Lily's head came up, alert to the shift in tone. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's wonderful," Michael assured her. "It's just Victoria and I have been talking, and we wanted to know how you'd both feel about making this arrangement a bit more permanent." Emma's face lit up. "You mean get married? Like in the movies?" "Something like that," Victoria said, her cheeks pink. "But only if you're both comfortable with it. This affects all of us. Would I get to be a flower girl?" Emma asked. "Priorities clear. The best flower girl?" Michael confirmed. "And Lily would be my real sister?" Lily reached over and hugged Emma. "I already am, Squirt. This would just make it official." "Then yes. Yes, yes, yes." Emma bounced in her chair, then stopped suddenly. "Wait. Would you be my daddy for real?" "Then?" Michael's throat tightened. They'd been careful about titles, about not pushing too fast. Emma still called him Michael, though the Mister had long since disappeared. "I'd be whatever you want me to be," he said carefully. Emma considered this with the gravity only a 7-year-old could muster. "I think I'd like 2 daddies. One in heaven who gave me his heart problems, but also his brave, and one here who makes soup and reads stories. Is that okay?" "That's perfect," Victoria whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Don't cry, Mommy," Emma commanded. "This is happy." "The happiest," Victoria agreed, laughing through her tears. Lily had been quiet through the exchange, and Michael watched her anxiously. His daughter, his rock, had been through so much. If she had any doubts, "I think Mom would have loved this," Lily said finally. "She always said the heart had infinite room to love, that loving new people didn't mean loving others less." She looked at Victoria. "She would have been grateful to you for loving Dad, for giving us a family again." Now Michael was crying too, and even Emma's eyes were suspiciously bright. "Group hug," Emma commanded, and they complied, the 4 of them tangled together in the kitchen where it all began. Later, as promised, they made cookies. Emma measured ingredients with scientific precision, while Lily supervised. Victoria managed to get flour in her $2 billion hair, and Michael burned the first batch because he was too busy watching his family to watch the timer, just like the first time. Emma giggled. "Full circle, fuller circle," Lily corrected, "because now we're all here." As the successful second batch cooled on the counter, they settled in the living room. Emma sprawled on the floor with her coloring, working on what she informed them would be their wedding portrait. Lily curled in the armchair with her anatomy textbook, occasionally reading particularly interesting facts aloud. Victoria and Michael shared the couch, her feet tucked under his leg, his arm around her shoulders. "The center's ribbon cutting is next month," Victoria said. "The mayor wants to give a speech." "Of course he does," Michael chuckled. "Election year. I told him he gets 5 minutes, max. The real stars are the families who've already been helped, including us," Michael said quietly. "Especially us." Emma looked up from her coloring. "Will there be cake at the ribbon cutting?" "Probably," Victoria said. "Good, but not as good as our cookies." She held up her drawing, 4 figures holding hands in front, of a building with a heart on it. "See? That's us at the center. We're all smiling because everyone's hearts work right." "It's beautiful," Michael said, meaning so much more than the picture. "I'll make another one for the wedding," Emma decided, "with more butterflies, and maybe a dog." "Can we get a dog?" "We'll see," Victoria and Michael said in unison, then laughed. As the afternoon wore on, they stayed close, held by invisible threads of love and choice and shared history. The emergency that had brought them together was a fading scar, but the life they'd built from it grew stronger every day. "I love you," Victoria whispered to Michael as the girls debated dog breeds. "I love you too," he replied, "still sometimes." amazed by the simple truth of it. From the kitchen, the timer dinged. The cookies were ready, but nobody moved to get them right away. They had time now, all the time in the world, to be together, to build their unconventional family, to save lives and make memories, and honor both the loves they'd lost and the love they'd found. Emma was right, Michael thought as he held his future wife and watched their daughters plan their combined futures. It wasn't happily ever after. It was happily ever during. And that perhaps was the greatest miracle of all.